Good morning, everyone. We are going to discuss today section 3 and section 4. So, for section 3, that is the review of related literature and studies. And for section 4, what we are going to discuss is the statistics in criminological research. Now, let's start with section 3 first, the review of related literature and studies. Okay, so it covers books, journals, monographs, magazines, encyclopedia, and others. So within this body of literature, we are also to focus attention on reports of studies that are in certain ways congruent to our own. Now, the review is an important part of the research process. So it is a must that the review of related literature or studies be incorporated, whether it be a separate, discrete topic, or whether it be included in the introductory part or in the background of the study. So it's really very important, class, for us to review those related literature, especially those that are related to our study. So, where can you find it? It could either be through reading those books, journals, monographs, magazines, those published researches, even in online or those available in the internet, ebooks. So you really need to review them. So it could either be you include that in the introductory or in the introduction or in the background of the study. However, there is a certain part in your thesis or for your research wherein there is what we call the RRL, or the review of related literature. So let's move on to the next slide. So the following guide question should be considered by the researcher in reviewing literature. So number one, how adequately has the literature been surveyed? Number two, does the review present pertinent material or is it just a filler? So were primary or secondary sources used? Were secondary sources relied on too heavily? So does the review critically evaluate previous findings and studies, or is it only a summary of what is known without pointing out any possible deficiencies or alternative explanations? Does the review support the need for studying the problem? And lastly, class, we have here, does the review establish a theoretical framework for the problem? So should be one of those guide questions that you need to consider in terms of reviewing the literature. So now, class, let's discuss the purposes of the review of related literature and studies. Why is it important, or why do you need to review the those related literatures and studies? So the following are some of the purposes and values of the review of related literature and studies. Number one, it provides the researcher some information about the status quo of knowledge in the area he or she intends to study. So it will give you an idea of what is the current situation of that area, or of that specific area or field of interest that you wanted to conduct a research or you wanted to conduct a study. Next, it provides the researcher with ideas of the type of study and research design that you may eventually, or he or she may eventually employ in conducting his research. So you will be able to have an idea of what will be your research design that you're going to use in your study or in your thesis. Next, it assists the researcher by pointing out the strengths and weaknesses in existing research. So you will be able to know what is going to be, or it will be highlighted there, the strengths and the weaknesses of that existing research. And it helps the researcher avoid errors that plague other researchers studying similar problems. So you already have an idea on how you will be able to avoid those errors, how you are going to how you will be able to avoid not to encounter those kinds of errors that those previous or others researchers have encountered or may have similar problem. It helps the researcher in developing a theoretical framework. So through reviewing those related literature and the studies, you will be able now to develop the theoretical framework. Next is that we have here purposes still of the review of related literature and studies, but this is according to Ari et al. In 1985. This aspect of the research process enables the researchers, or it will enable you to, number one, define the frontiers of his fields or of your fields. It means, class, when we talk about frontiers of your field, so it means that the limit, extreme limit of understanding in that particular area that you wanted to study. Place your question in perspective. Learn which procedures have proved useful and which seem less promising, wherein earlier it has been discussed that you will be able to identify there the strengths and the weaknesses of those existing research. Avoid unintentional replication of previous studies, and of course, you to better interpret the significance of your own result. Now let's move on to the in reviewing related studies, whether by manual or computer search. So the researcher can hardly find time to read the whole research manuscript. So ibig sabihin that even before, when I was doing my undergraduate and my master's degree, or for my master's thesis or research, it is very difficult really to find time to read those different research manuscript, like thesis and dissertations, different researchers, those published books, those different materials where you can be able to review the related literature and studies. Thus, you should be skillful enough to go to important pages where important parts of the study are found. So you need to be skillful. You need to find a way or means for you to be able to go through to read those important, or those, let's say, relevant pages which is important in your study, or where you will be able to find those important parts of the study. Now, the following are the parts of the manuscript that the researcher can find useful for making your review. So, number one, we have here the abstract. So, copy exactly as written in the manuscript or article. So, basically, this abstract, this is a brief summary of a research article, thesis, review, conference proceeding, or any in-depth analysis of a particular subject, and is often used to help the reader quickly ascertain the paper's purpose. So basically, for the abstract, you just need to copy exactly as written in the manuscript or article. Next, we have here the rationale or background of the study. You need to note the researcher's motivation and justification for conducting the study. What motivated those researchers, or what are those justification why they conducted that kind of research? So when we talk about as well rationale or background of the study, this is the reason for conducting the study. The rationale should answer the need for conducting the said research. Why are you going to conduct that research? It is a very important part of your publication, as it justifies the significance and novelty of the study. So that is why it is also referred to as the justification of the study. Next, we have here statement of the research of the problem or research objectives. So you need to list them exactly as stated in the manuscript or article that you are reviewing. So what is a statement of the problem in research? So this is a statement. A statement of problem refers to the critical issue that your research seeks to address. Those research objectives. In other words, it captures the existing knowledge gap that your study aims to bridge using reliable results or outcomes. Next is we have here the hypothesis. So list them exactly as stated in the manuscript or article as well. So a research hypothesis is a statement of expectation or prediction that will be tested by research. So before formulating your research hypothesis, read about the topic of interest to you, which is why before I gave you the assignment, I have included as well there what are those fields of study, or those criminological fields that you need to consider when you are going to look for your research title. The same goes when you are going to create the hypothesis or the research hypothesis. Next class is we have the research methodology. So you need to list the research design, whether it could be an experiment, survey, case study, or etc. research environment or the locale of the study where you're going to conduct your study, the respondents or subjects of the study who will be those people that that will participate or that will become your respondents. Sampling procedures, data gathering procedures, research instrument, whether it's questionnaire, interview schedule, and the statistical treatment of data. And note any unusual procedures or techniques employed by the researcher in that manuscript or article that you are reviewing or reading. Now, a research methodology, it encompasses the way in which you intend to carry out your research. Also, it refers to the techniques used to find and analyze information for a study, so ensuring that the results are valid, reliable, and that they address the research objective. So it should be able to answer your research objective. Next is that we have findings. So now you need to list the major findings of the study. Basically, this is the result, the outcome, and indicate whether the objectives of the study were attained or whether the hypotheses were supported. Now, the principal outcomes of a research, uh, what the project suggested, revealed, or indicated. So basically, ano ba yung kinalabasan nung kinandak yun na research? This usually refers to the totality of outcomes rather than the conclusions or recommendations drawn from them. So what is the result? What is the findings? Ano ba yung nalaman mo doon out of your research? Now, let's talk about lastly the conclusions. To describe the researcher's conclusions, note your disagreements with the researcher as well as the reasons for such disagreement. Likewise, note the strengths and weaknesses of the study that make the results particularly applicable or limited with regard to your present research question. Now, let's discuss, that's all about chapter 3. For the review of related literature and studies, let's move on to the next slide and start discussing section 4, which is the statistics in criminological research. So number 1 is the selecting the study population. First, let's define what is sampling. So sampling is the process of choosing a representative portion of a population or some elements in a population that will represent the entire population. Ibig sabihin is that ito yung process wherein you're going to select out of that entire population, you're going to select a portion of that population who are going to represent that entire population. Now, let's talk about here the 5 design of probability sampling designs. Now, let's talk about first the simple random sampling. So, this is the basic and best known probability sampling design because it gives each unit of the population an equal probability or chance of being included in the sample. So, anyway, class, we are only going to discuss this, but as mentioned during our orientation, that we are going to invite a statistician who will further discuss with you the the statistics part of, or that what we call this, the the statistics part or the statistics in criminological research. So this is just an introduction or things that we need to know about statistics in criminological research. Now, the next picture will is an illustration of the simple random sampling. So, as you can see, this is an example of simple random sampling. So, as you can see that it gives each unit or the population, each unit of the population an equal probability or chance of being included in the sample or in the conduct of sampling. Next class is we have here the systematic sampling. This is the modified version of simple random sampling. It is less time consuming and easier to implement. So here is an example or an illustration. So in this case, every second person is systematically selected. So you are trying to modify the simple random sampling. Next, we have here another probability sampling design, which is stratified sampling. This sampling design is appropriate for heterogeneous population as it ensures adequate representations for each of the populations, subgroups, or strata in the sample. So let's take a look at the illustration. So this is an example of what we call stratified sampling. Now let's move on to the next probability sampling design, which is the cluster sampling. So this refers to any entire group of individuals or objects which share similar characteristics important in the study. So this is an illustration for the cluster sampling. So there. So what you are trying to for the cluster sampling is that the similar characteristics important in your study. Now we have here next the multi-stage sampling. So involve several stages or phases in drawing the sample from the population. So here is an example of an illustration for the multi-stage sampling. Next is that we also have here the non-probability sampling designs. So there are 4 non-probability sampling designs which are often used by the researcher for the reason of cannot use any probability sampling design. So if you cannot use any probability sampling design, now you are going to use this non-probability sampling design. Number 1, we have here the purposive sampling. So the researcher uses his good judgment and appropriate strategy in selecting the subject who will comprise the sample and who will meet best the purposes of the study or of the study that you are going to conduct. So here is an illustration for purposive sampling. You will be the one, you're going to use your judgment, appropriate strategy for you to be able who is going to meet the best purpose of your study or the reason why you're conducting your study. Next we have is the convenience sampling. Now the investigator or the researcher simply takes the available persons to constitute his sample and continues doing so until he reaches a predetermined sample size. So basically, diba, from the word itself, convenience, for who are those available persons or people. So here is an example. You're just going to look or will simply take those available who can be able to who you can use as your sample size. Next is that we have here quota sampling. So this is the equivalent to stratified sampling under the probability category, because earlier we talked about stratified sampling. When we talk about stratified, it talks about adequate representations if you have the heterogeneous population. So you will have, you need to ensure an adequate representation for each of the population, subgroup, or strata in the sample. So here is an example to the quota sampling there. So they're looking for male above 50. And next, we have lastly the snowball sampling. So this design requires identification of a few persons who meet the requisite characteristic important to the study. So now you have already here the requisites. So here is an illustration of a snowball sampling. Next class, let's discuss about population. So this refers to the total number of elements to be studied, is a well-defined set of elements or cases, whether individuals, animals, objects, events that conform to specific criteria and to which one intend to generalize the results of the research. So basically, the population are those your respondents, your participants. And topic population, this refers to the group or set about which generalizations will be made. Respondent population refers to the group or set who might be interviewed to obtain information about a topic population. And target population is the group or set of items or individuals from which or about which representative information is originally desired. Next question, class, is that we have here the sampling population. So this is the population from which a sample is actually drawn, kung saan kukunin yung sample. Sampling, which we have already discussed, this refers again, class, to the processes whereby a subgroup called a sample is picked out from a larger group referred to as a population. And then we use this subgroup as a basis for making judgments about the larger group. Now, sample, it refers to an individual, an element, or a group of individuals or elements on which information is obtained. A sample is a set of elements or a single element from which data are obtained. So basically, this is yung part of the subgroup kung saan nyo kukunin yung kung saan nyo sila, ito yung kinuha nyo doon sa larger na group or population, yung sample. Next question, class, is why do sampling? Bakit kailangan natin mag-conduct nitong sampling? So, of course, researchers generally use sampling because of budget, time, and manpower constraints. Such constraints prevent them from undertaking a complete study of the total target population. So, Wood and Haber in 1998 and Cooper and Emery in 1995 cited 4 purposes of sampling. Why do we need to conduct sampling? So number 1 is that reduced cost. So if data are secured from only a small fraction of the aggregate, expenditures are smaller than if a complete consensus is attempted if you are going to conduct to all of that population, which is why you're only going to get a sample. Diba? Sample lang siya. You're not going to take everyone or all, just a sample out of that population. Greater speed. For the same reason, the data can be collected and summarized more quickly with a sample than with a complete count. This is a vital consideration when the information is urgently needed. So, of course, diba, if it is urgently needed, so it would be easier, diba, for you to be able to collect and summarize those data that you have gathered or acquired from if you have a sample. Greater scope. In certain types of injury, highly trained or specialized equipment, limited in availability, must be used to obtain the data. So a complete count in this case is impracticable. The choice lies between obtaining the information by sampling or not at all. So it depends upon the researcher or dependent upon you whether if you are going to obtain the complete count or just a sampling or not at all. Lastly is we have here the greater accuracy, because personnel of higher quality can be employed and given extensive training and supervision, a same sample may actually produce more accurate results than a complete enumeration. Next. So probability versus non-probability sampling design. So generally, sampling designs are classified into probability and non-probability sampling design. So probability sampling is practiced in so many instances in our daily lives. So have you experienced winning a lottery? How were you selected as winner? Or are you a regular buyer of sweepstakes tickets? Or how are the winning numbers selected in a sweepstakes draw? So have you seen a tambiolo on TV, or what is it used for? So to answer those questions, class, diba, probability sampling is similar to drawing a winning stab in a lottery or drawing numbers in a sweepstakes draw or picking out a winning entry from a tambiolo. So basically, diba, class, if you are watching itong lotto or the sweepstakes, diba, yung sa PCSO, if you are watching that, so now, what your probability sampling is the same as picking a number. Yung parang kukuha ka lang doon out of that tambiolo or yung parang what we call this, yung lalagyan ng mga lottery numbers or yung pagkuha ng numbers. In all these situations, each entry is given at least a chance, a non-zero chance of being selected. Kasi nga, di ba, you're going to draw it. Diba, draw lots, may parang the same as draw lots, mag-draw lots kayo, diba, meron nakalagay doon yung mga different na mga, for example, numbers, and then you're going to draw the number there. Next is, this is the probability sampling, which we have discussed earlier, the simple random sampling, the systematic sampling, stratified sampling, and also the cluster sampling, the convenience sampling, purposive sampling, and the quota sampling. So these are the ones or the types of sampling that we have discussed earlier and we have seen in those illustrations. And as well as the snowball sampling. Now let's talk about data. This refers to any kind of information researchers obtain on the subjects, respondents, or participants of a study. So when we talk about those that you have gathered from your, let's say for example, sa subjects, sa participants of your study or respondents, those kinds of information is what we call data. And what are the types of research data? We have the primary data. These are those which are gathered directly from the informants of the study. So doon sa mga participants or your respondents of your study. Now, the secondary data are those which have been previously gathered, complied, and stored somewhere and may be available to the researcher who finds them useful to his particular study. So basically, it is not directly coming from that data is not directly coming from your participants, respondents of the study, but from those previously gathered. Diba? Na-compile na siya, have those that have already been stored previously in the previous conduct of different researches. Next is what are those form of data? We have the quantitative data and the qualitative data. So for the quantitative data, these are information which can be counted or expressed in numerical values. So it means, ibig sabihin in numbers. Now, qualitative data are descriptive information which has no numerical value. So this does not talk about numbers. So most probably, for qualitative data, this talks about words, expressions, but in quantitative, more on the numerical values like numbers. And let's talk about next the validity and reliability of a research instrument. So validity, it refers to the appropriateness, meaningfulness, and usefulness of inferences a researcher makes on data they collect. How appropriate it is, how meaningful and useful that can be. Diba? How valid it is. Then common trait to validity. So history, this factor refers to events which happen during the life of a study. Selection, this factor occurs when the subjects of the study are chosen to form the study groups. You are going to select now you're going to select for you to be able to form the study group. And testing, this factor refers to the effects of a test given repeatedly or before exposing the subjects to an intervention or treatment. So you have this, what we call pre-test, and the same given in the post-test. Kasi before you conduct this, meron kasi itong siyang tinatawag na I forgot the name class, but before you will be able to conduct before you will be able to give your survey questionnaire, meron tayong tinatawag dito na yung parang pre-test siya. There is another word or term for that pre-test, but before you distribute to your respondents, to your possible respondents or participants of the study, meron tayong tinatawag doon na yung parang pre-test siya. But there is another word for this. And next, instrumentation. This factor refers to the unreliability or lack of consistency in measuring instrument, which may result in an invalid assessment of performance. Next is we have maturation. This factor to change physiological or psychological which happen to the subject involved in the study conducted over relatively long period of time. And then we have here mortality. This factor refers to loss of cases of subjects during the post-test stage of the study. So nawala na yun siya, di ba? Possible loss. And statistical regression, the trait of statistical regression occurs when individual is selected as a group. So now class, lastly, we have here reliability. So this refers to the consistency of the responses or the scores obtained by individual in a test or research instrument administered twice. So now class, let's discuss next the statistical tools. So let's discuss statistics first. So this is the science or practice of developing human knowledge through the use of empirical data expressed in quantitative form. So it is based on statistical theory, which is a branch of applied mathematics. So the collecting, summarizing, and analyzing of data that you have gathered. So the term also refers to raw numbers or stat and to the summarization of data. Example, frequency. So the number of occurrence of a repeating event per unit of time. How frequent would it occur? Percentage is the number or ratio expressed as a fraction of 100. So this is an example of part of statistics. So this explains the statistical instrument used in the study It usually used to measure the central tendency. Central tendencies are some of the basic and useful statistical functions. So the most commonly used measures of central tendency for numerical data are the mean and radian. Ito yung normal na ginagamit na statistical tool. Next, let's define what are those kinds ng mga statistical tool. One, we have here the mean. So this is the average of all data points. We have the median, the point where half of the data lies above and half below it. And we also have mode, the most common value in the data. Now, on the other hand naman, class, if the study is correlation, it may use chi-square. So it is used when you have qualitative variables from a single population. If significance difference naman siya, it's ANOVA is used. Now, if you are going to use the regression analysis, so use when you want to predict a continuous development variables from a number of independent variables, and it is also used for prediction and forecasting. In factor analysis, this is useful tool for investigating variable relationship for complex concepts such as socio-economic status. So again, class, as mentioned earlier, that or even during our conduct of the course orientation, that in terms of the statistics of criminological research, we are going to invite or we are going to conduct a webinar for you to be able to better understand the statistics in criminological research. But if you would like, there are also a lot of recorded videos or discussions that you can find in YouTube for you to be able to understand this. However, rest assured that some of those statistical tools or the sampling designs that we are going to use are those basic and common. And that is something that you can easily understand. So thank you so much everyone for listening, and this is the last topic that we have for the prelim exam. And what's going to happen next will be your oral presentation for your research titles with rubrics. So good day everyone.